Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your English Literature live class. We have been doing the story, The Mystery of the Perfect Maid, which has been written by Agatha Christie. And today we'll continue from the last paragraph, which is given on page number 126. So let us read. And not Mary alone was missing. Two brooches and 5 rings of Miss Lavinia's, 3 rings, a pendant, a bracelet, and 4 brooches of Miss Emily's were missing also. Each and every tenant at Old Hall had all their valuables stolen too. It seemed clear that Mary, the perfect maid, had keys to fit all the flats at Old Hall. Now, what happened? The perfect maid, Mary Higgins. She, Miss Lavinia, was very happy with her work. She was quite convinced with her performance. And for 10 days, if you remember, we did yesterday. For 10 days, the villagers had to listen to the excellencies of this perfect maid of Miss Lavinia's and Miss Emily's treasure. But what happened on 11th day? The perfect maid, all of a sudden she disappeared. Okay, and along, not only she was missing, but the other valuable things were also missing along with her. And what were the things which were missing on the 11th day? You can just underline 2 brooches and 5 rings of Miss Lavinia, 3 rings, a pendant, a bracelet, and 4 brooches of Miss Emily, and also the valuable things from the houses of other tenants were also missing. So it was very clear that Mary Higgins, had the keys. Okay, she got the replicas of all the keys of all the houses, and therefore she could steal from the other tenants also. Okay, so this which is written keys to fit all the flat at Old Hall. That means she got the replica of all the keys of all the houses. Next, she was quite clever, but I am quite sure we will catch her, proclaimed Inspector Slack. Inspector Slack was always a confident man. Nevertheless, weeks passed and Mary Higgins remained at large. Now, which character comes into the scene? Inspector Slack. He has come to investigate into the matter. Okay, so he says that yes, the thief is very clever and very cunning also, but he was quite sure that he would find her, and he was a very confident man. Whatsoever the investigation was going on, the inquiry was going on. Weeks passed, but Mary Higgins could not be found anywhere. Okay, Mary Higgins remained at large means she was still she inspector could not still find her. Next, Miss Lavinia remained tearful. Miss Emily was so upset that she actually sent for the village doctor. The whole of the village was anxious to know what he thought of Miss Emily's claims to ill health. Through Mr. Meek, the doctor's assistant, it came to be known that the village doctor had prescribed some common pungent herbs, which, according to Mr. Meek, were only given to shirkers and people who pretend to be ill in the army. Now the scene has the scene has become very anxious, and people are very anxious because why? Miss Lavinia, she was very depressed, and she was very sad because of the theft which had taken place, and Miss Emily was very upset also, and she was so upset that she was sent to the local doctor. If you remember earlier, she was very reluctant in going to the doctor and seeking the doctor's advice. She said that her disease is beyond the comprehension of the local doctor, right? But now what happens? She has been sent to the local doctor, and there's Mr. Meek. Underline, Mr. Meek is doctor's assistant. Okay, so he told, and the whole village was very anxious and was very curious to know that actually what the doctor is going to say about her illness, because if you remember, she used to claim that she suffered from all sorts of illness, all kinds of disease she was suffering from. Okay, uh, so it came out that she was not she was not sick. Okay, Mr. Meek told everyone that The doctor has given some herbs or some sort of medicines or herbs which are given for the satisfaction of such kind of people who think that they are sick. Okay, she was just it was all in her head that she was ill, and actually she wasn't ill. She was not suffering from any disease. And Mr. Meek also told people that such kinds of herbs are given to those who pretend to be ill just in order to escape the work. Okay, so to the shirkers and people who pretend to be ill in the army, so that they are not given much work, they are not given much responsibility. So people, they pretend to be ill. So when such type of people are taken to the doctor just for the sake of satisfaction gives some pungent herbs. Pungent herb means which has very strong taste and very foul smell. So that is what pungent means. Soon afterward, it was learned that Miss Emily declared that in the state of her health, she felt it her duty to be near the specialist in London who understood her case. Therefore, the flat was put up for subletting. Now, what happens is that when the local doctor declares that she is not ill or sick as she claims, so she said that Miss Emily thought that it is better for her to seek the specialist from London because it is her duty towards her own self, that she has to take care of herself and her health. So she would be going to seek the advice of the specialist who was there in London. So she plans to leave the old hall, and the flat was again let out for to seek the other tenants. Okay, so that the flat was put up for subletting. That means they were leaving the house, so they put up the advertisement that some other person could come and stay in their house. It was a few days after that Miss Marple called at the police station and asked for Inspector Slack. Good afternoon, Miss Marple. What can I do for you? Oh, dear Inspector, said Miss Marple. It's about Mrs. Skinner's maid, Mary Higgins. Have you any ideas on that subject? Said Inspector Slack. Well, as a matter of fact, I have, said Miss Marple. May I ask you a question? Are fingerprints of no use to you? Ah, said Inspector Slack. That's where she was a bit too artful for us. Mary did most of her work in housemaid's rubber gloves, it seems. And she was careful, wiped off everything, couldn't find a single fingerprint in the place. Now what happened that after a few days when Skinners they all left, so Miss Marple, as you know, she was a witty lady. Okay, she had this interest in solving the mysteries and everything. So the things were going on in her head, right? She must have been thinking about it every time. So she one fine day she called up Inspector Slack. She called up at the police station and asked for Inspector Slack. So, and she had a conversation with him. So what conversation took place? She was discussing about the case of Mary Higgins, and asked him that if he found any evidence against her, or if there is any progress in the investigation. So Inspector Slack said no, there's no progress so far. Then to this, Miss Marple asked that if the fingerprints are of any use to him, because she might have the fingerprints of Mary Higgins, right? So she asked him if there is if in any way fingerprints could help the investigation. So Inspector Slag said yes, it would have been very much helpful. But Mary Higgins was very clever and she was very cunning. And because why was she very clever? Because she did not leave any fingerprint. She did not leave any evidence for them. Because she used to work wearing gloves, okay, rubber gloves. So nowhere her fingerprints could be found. And also after working, she wiped off everything. As you remember that she was a very perfect lady. She used to clean the house very perfectly. Okay, every each and every minute details she used to look after. Why? Because she had to clean all the evidence. She has to remove all the evidence. She had to remove all the evidences. So she was very clever. She was very cunning. She used to work not with the bare hands but wearing the rubber gloves. And after that also she had cleaned everything. She had wiped off everything. So there was no single place where Inspector Slack could find her fingerprints. If you did have her fingerprints, would it help? Asked Miss Marple. It might, madam. They may be known at the yard. This isn't her first job, I'd say. So Miss Marple said that okay, you might have not found her fingerprints in this house, but if by any chance you find her fingerprints, then would it help you in any way? So he said that yes, of course, it might have helped me, and I could have sent it to the yard. Yard is a place where yard, you can be referred to any place which is required, which is used for carrying out a particular activity. Okay, so yard can be referred to as the lab where fingerprints are sent and for getting the reports and everything which is used for the investigation purpose, right? So he said that yes, I might have sent it to the yard and got to know how could it help. And also he said that it was not her first job. Mary Higgins appeared to him to be a professional thief. Okay, because the because very professionally she executed everything. She did not leave any evidence behind. Miss Marple nodded brightly. She opened her bag and extracted a small cardboard box. Inside it, wedged in cotton wool, was a small mirror. From my handbag, said Miss Marple. The maid's prints are on it as she picked it up for me when I dropped my bag while visiting the Skinners. So now Miss Marple, she takes out a cardboard box from her bag and hands it over to Inspector Slack. She says that inside the cardboard there was a small mirror. Okay, and she kept it very safely. As you can see that it was wedged in cotton wool so that it doesn't break. Okay, the the small mirror, it could break if she would have handled it roughly. So she kept it very safely in her purse in a cardboard, that too covered in wrapped in cotton wool, right? And she said that how did she find the fingerprints? When she visited last time, when she visited Skinner's last time, then she dropped her bag and the bag was picked up by Mary Higgins. So that way she got her fingerprints on that mirror. Inspector Slack stared. Did you get her fingerprints on purpose? Of course. You suspected her then. Inspector Slack asked her that, well, did she do that on purpose? Did she do that intentionally? So of course, is said by Miss Marple. Okay, there's nothing written over here. So of course, was the reply of Miss Marple. Then he asked whether she suspected her or not. So she said, "Let us see what does she say." Well, it did strike me that she was a little too perfect. I am afraid, Inspector, that I don't believe in paragons. Well, said Inspector Slab, I am obliged to you. We'll send these up to the yard and see what they have to say. Now, Miss Marple, why did she suspect Mary? Because she was too perfect to be real. Okay, like everybody has some or the other imperfection, but Mary, this was too perfect, and because she was very much perfect, she was way too perfect. That made Miss Marple suspect her. Okay, so she was after her. She had started to collect evidences against her for the situation like this which has arisen. Then Miss Inspector Slack thanked her and he said that he's very obliged to her and he would be sending the fingerprints to the yard. But Miss Marple had put her head a little on one side and said, "You wouldn't consider, I suppose, Inspector, looking a little nearer home." "What do you mean, Miss Marple?" asked Slack. It's very difficult to explain, but when you come across a peculiar thing, you notice it. Although often peculiar things may be merest trifles, Gladys is an honest girl. She didn't take that brooch. Then why did Miss Skinner think she did? Miss Skinner's not a fool. Why was she so anxious to dismiss a good servant when servants are hard to find? It was peculiar, you know. So I wondered, and I noticed another peculiar thing. Miss Emily likes to believe that she is sick, but she doesn't send for a doctor. Hypochondriacs like her love doctors. Miss Emily did. Now, what happens when Inspector Slack he said that he would be sending the fingerprints to the yard. To this, Miss Marple said that. She was just trying to indicate it to Inspector Slack that the evidence could be found in the home itself, in the house itself, and how that we'll come to know later. But now in this paragraph, she's explaining that what all peculiarities she noticed in the Skinner's house, how strange it appeared to her. First of all, that it was very peculiar that the Skinners dismissed Gladdy because Gladdy was a very honest maid. Okay, and it was not a very good idea to dismiss an honest maid just for the sake of when the brooch was missing, and also it was found later. Still, Miss Lavinia was so obstinate that she dismissed her. Right. This was the first strange thing that she noticed. The next one was that on that it was very difficult for them to get the maid. Still, she dismissed Gladdy. Okay, she could have warned her, or she could have penalized her, but dismissing altogether was not a good idea. So these two things were peculiar, and the third one was that Miss Emily's behavior. Miss Emily used to lie down in her dimly lit room all the time, and she used to pretend that she was suffering from various kinds of disease. And hypochondriacs means it is a psychiatric disorder where one person thinks that he or she is suffering from different and many kinds of diseases, and that person every now and then likes to visit the doctor. Okay, because he or she thinks that I am not well, I am ill, so I will go and seek the doctor. But Miss Emily, she pretended she was sick, but she was not ready to seek the doctor. Okay, so this also kind of appeared strange to Miss Marple. What are you suggesting? Miss Marple asked Slack. Well, I'm suggesting, that Miss Lavinia and Miss Emily are peculiar people. That Miss Lavinia and Miss Emily are very strange people. Miss Emily spends nearly all her day in a dark room, as I told you, and I am sure that hairs of hers is a wig. Now she suspected Miss Lavinia and Miss Emily as well. Okay, Miss Marple, she found these strange things. She analyzed these things, and her suspect uh, is there on Miss Lavinia and Miss Emily as well. And she also thinks that the gray hair of Miss Emily were nothing but a wig. And nobody that I can find ever saw Miss Emily and Mary Higgins at one and the same time. Right? This is the biggest clue that Miss Emily and Mary Higgins couldn't be found at one place together. That means, let us see what she says. Plenty of time to get impression of all the keys, plenty of time to find out all about the other tenants, and then get rid of Gladdy. Miss Emily takes a brisk walk across country one night and arrives at the station as Mary Higgins next day. Okay, so what is she trying to suggest? That Mary Higgins and Miss Emily are not two different persons but one person only. Okay, it's only Miss Emily who is Miss Emily when she is there at old house, at old hall, and she used to lie down all the time in the bed. So nobody cared about where Miss Emily might be. So she had all the time to herself to get all the to get all the copies of the keys of other houses also, and she also had the hands in the removal of Gladdy as well, right? So and she takes a brisk walk across the country and reaches the station as Mary Higgins. Okay, so at one time she's Emily, and at the other time she's Mary Higgins. So these two are not, the Mary Higgins and Emily are not the two person, but just one person. That is Miss Emily. Miss Emily. Then at the right moment, Mary Higgins disappears, and off goes the hue and cry after her. I'll tell you where you'll find her, Inspector. On Miss Emily Skinner's sofa. Get her fingerprints if you don't believe me, but you'll find I'm right. A couple of clever thieves, that's what the Skinners are. But they won't get away with at this time. I'm not going to have one of our village girls' character for honesty taken away like that. Gladdy is as honest as the day, and everybody is going to know it. Good afternoon. So she had said what she had to. That Miss Skinners, the Skinners are nothing but they are the two clever thieves. Okay, they have been doing this since a long time. They visit a place, they stay there as tenants, and then they do this. They put the blame. They steal themselves. They put the blame on the maid, and then they leave. See, Mary Higgins is a fictional character. Okay, they have made her steal the things, and now they have made her disappear. Okay, so the inspectors and anybody could never be able to find her because the person doesn't exist in real. So this was such a cunning plotting, okay, which the Skinners had done, but. Miss Marple, she observed all these things very keenly, and she found out right that the thieves are are the Skinners only. And she also tells Inspector that that he could find the fingerprints of Miss Emily Skinner's on her sofa, and he could match both the fingerprints, and then he would get to know that whatever Miss Marple was saying was right. And she did all these things. Why? Because she did not want the girl from her village to get a bad name. Okay, she protected Gladys' character over here. Then Miss Marple had walked out before Inspector Slack had recovered. Phew, he muttered. I wonder if she's right. He soon found out that Miss Marple was right. So after saying all these things, Miss Marple she leaves the house, and after that Inspector Slag goes on investigating, and he finds out at the end that yes, Miss Marple was right. He matched both the fingerprints which was handed to him by Miss Marple, and then the fingerprints which were there on the sofa, and both of the fingerprints matched. That showed that yes, Miss Emily was Mary Higgins, and Mary Higgins was Miss Emily. Okay, so this is how the case of the mysterious Perfect Maid has been solved by Miss Marple. She helped Inspector Slack in solving this mystery. So it was a good story indeed. I hope you people have understood it. Thank you so much.